Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's finals day here at the Quake World Championship. We've had a 3-1, a 3-0, a down to the wire 3-2, some sudden deaths. This is what you want out of a finals day. I'm welcoming back to the desk ZSX and Flea. Gentlemen, before we get in and talk about this next lower bracket game, any thoughts on what we just saw?
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen Rapper a little bit rattled. You know, there were some mistakes in there that were semi-uncharacteristic. You know, maybe in part that we're returning to learn, and his heavy rush style, which is a bit riskier in this scenario, was being punished a bit more than it had done in the past. But, you know, I just have to credit Razy for sticking in there. It was a real tough road back, and there were some close matches there. And we've just had a continuation of our incredible event so far.
I aged 15 years in that series. It was rough.
You look 15 years old.
No, but we were watching backstage, and there were a number of people sitting around going like, "Yeah, that's GG." Like on Deep Embrace, we were already like, "Yeah, that's over." Rafa's now 2-3 frags ahead. Nope. Every single time it switches control at the very end, one person gets the lead over the other. Absolute insanity, and Razy so collected. Love what I'm seeing out of him.
Yeah, it's really just quite amazing that you just cannot count victory until that buzzer actually hits. Just so many close one-frag games on that one. So we are going to be shifting gears again. We've got another lower bracket game. Of course, Razy's going to end up playing the winner of this next matchup, and that's either going to be Wenger or cha1n. Now, we got a chance to sit down with cha1n. He was pretty happy with his performance. He said things just clicked for him yesterday. But let's hear what he said about going into the top 6.
I don't know if I was expecting it this far. Yes and no. It's hard to say, really. Like I'm also just mentally exhausted. I'm not thinking about that anymore. I'm just thinking about maximum focus for today. But yeah, now I do think like there's a chance I win. My toughest matchup, I probably had 2. One was against Avik and the other against Zeneku. The one with the Zeneku, I was playing a very bad game, and he was playing very well. I think even if I was playing well, it would have been very hard as well. He just was on top of his game, and then you even saw how he was playing against Rafa. He was playing like top tier. And then Avik, he's just so stressful to play against. He's like constant pressure. So yeah, those 2 were my toughest. My most proud win would probably be against Avik. Like I said, it was just to beat him on land is like very, very hard. And actually, every time I've played him in other lands, maybe 3 times now, he's beaten me. So to get over that mental block was important. And also for myself, I just played like an amazing game. So yeah, that felt good to win. So today, I'd want to play cha1n because due to some unfortunate things, I wasn't able to play him in the regular season online. So I would like to play him now, but I think other than that, I don't really care who I play. It doesn't matter. There's no one I really am trying to avoid. Unfortunately, I have to play Rafa if I do play him in the loser bracket finals. I'd prefer to play him in the grand finals, just you know, so one of us wins. My mindset going into the final day is just to reclaim the same focus I had yesterday. Play a very loose game. I don't have to prepare anything. I'm not worried. I'm no longer looking into my notes or whatever. I'm just like maximize my own game, and it should be. I've proved to myself that it's good enough to win. So I think there's a good chance I can win. So we'll see what happens.
Well, he's got to get past this next competitor here first. And, you know, there is something to be said. We've seen some play from players where it's clearly, even in our casting and watching these games, it's like they've figured it out, right? They're reading the green lines of code falling down the screens, and they're like, oh, it's a rocket launcher. I see it now. And that's kind of what cha1n was describing yesterday. It's what Maxter has kind of described, and things just kind of clicking. So let's talk a little bit about cha1n.
NA's last hope now. You can claim him. I'll give you permission. But he's just been playing better and better. I think, as he rightly put it, there was some mental blocks there based on his previous performances in the past. And he just seems to be growing into this event. And one of the features of his play that impresses me is just how he plays his opponents really, really well. I think in the past, particularly in the league play, he sometimes gives his opponents breathing room to be a bit too passive and defensive. But this event, he's just gone toe-to-toe and been much more aggressive, much more offensive, and believes in himself as well. And just and that, you know, the execution has clicked, as you rightly pointed out, and he pointed out to us yesterday. And he's going to need that against Wenger, because if Wenger can put that pressure on, then cha1n will have to still hold his ground like he did against Avak. And if he does, we've seen Wenger actually kind of succumb to the pressure of Maxter already. It could happen again.
Yeah.
I also just love that we kind of have an underdog in cha1n making it this far, right? Because if you look at the seeding of all these other players, they're so high up there. But then you've got cha1n, who came in 11th out of the 13 players who were in the Quake Pro League. And here he is, top 6. And you can also just watch his progression throughout this tournament, right?
Yep.
cha1n came so close to dropping out against Sparty. His first matchup in the lower bracket was one of the closest series he's actually had to play. But then he managed to take down Sparty, and afterwards he beat, let's take a look, he beat Sip, then he beat Avak, who that was a very difficult fight, took out cha1n last night as well. So this is a great story for him.
Yeah, I mean, definitely played the endurance game, which is never an easy thing to do, and usually an indicator that, like, all right, you're kind of figuring stuff out. And cha1n is sort of like, like every game has that monster where you walk into a room and it's like a blob, and then it turns into a mirror of yourself. Like, that's what he's been doing here. He has been, in a lot of cases, matching exactly what his opponent's bringing. He knows what he's got to do. I don't know if that's throwing individuals off or it's just working really well for cha1n, but he's up against, one of the toughest mimic blobs that there could be, and that, of course, being Wenger. Let's talk a little bit about him. Now, although he did not have, it's hard to say. Did Wenger play poorly, or did Maxter play out of his frickin' mind, right? Either way, maybe a little bit of both. But I have to imagine coming off of that matchup, well, he understands what he needs to do, the task list that's in front of him. How do you think he's going to handle this matchup?
He has to calm himself down. There was definitely elements of mental struggle, I think, in the previous series, and I agree with you. It is definitely a bit mixture of both. Like, Maxter was definitely playing insane, but I didn't see enough of an adjustment in style from Wenger throughout that series. He just kept trying to go toe-to-toe with Maxter in areas that just wasn't being productive. So he needs to mix it up, use the tri-bolt, the heavy machine gun in that series, and just be confident in himself again. I felt that we saw a Wenger that, pretty maybe for the first time ever, felt like he lacked some self-belief as that series went on, particularly in the last map. He was just kind of playing a very different game than I would expect from him. So he just needs to get back and play his style. If he does that, he's a proven competitor. He's beaten cha1n in the league before. He can definitely do it again.
I was about to say the exact same thing. His self-confidence just really appeared to be missing in that previous matchup against Maxter. The rail in particular, right? Hitting 20% on map 1, around 20% on map 2 as well. Otherwise, his game, it was good, maybe even great, but he needs to be exceptional at this point, and he just wasn't delivering that. So I really hope that he's had the opportunity to take a breather, calm down, focus himself, and believe in what he's capable of.
Well, because we're in best-of-5 situation, it means that the picks and bans have been real interesting all day. Let's check them out now and see if we'll continue that trend. We're going to kick things off with Blood Covenant and then move on to Ruins. After that, we've got Insomnia. That's a pick from Wenger. Interesting. Deep Embrace is going to come out. And then the final map, Awoken, and take us through the champions. Oh, fair. Wow, this is real interesting.
I just love the theme of the day, right? Starting with the lights first. Every single time, players hyper-focus on those light, fast, squishy champions. Then towards the middle, we see the mid champions, right? Decent stacks, decent mobility, medium. And then at the very end, when they absolutely have to, okay, now we're jumping on to the heavies. Such an interesting meta, ZSX.
Yeah, no, it is. And we'll hope we get that far into deep, because then we can actually see the state of the heavies, because everyone just wants to avoid them if their life depends on it. The big things that stand out for me is picking Nyx up on Ruins when Ranger is available. We know that Wenger loves that champion, so really wants to play around the Nyx, have that defensive style, and the counter advisor's there as well. We know that's pretty strong on Ruins nonetheless. So that's the kind of matchup I'm looking at there. Apart from that, I really like everyone's picks actually across the board. The speed for speed on the first map, Wenger picking up the slash to counter the Anarchy. On Insomnia as well, he's gone with the BJ Doom. We saw that exact matchup on Insomnia earlier, and it didn't obviously work out from Wenger's perspective. And if we do get to Deep Embrace, you're kind of stuck with what's left. And Wenger's gone with Galena. Is definitely a champion we don't see an awful lot of on Deep Embrace, but still got some value there against the Keel. And then I think everyone wants to go best of 5 and just see a clutch versus a Zorlag.
I think on Ruins, cha1n just drew his lessons from his matchup against Zeneku, right? Because that was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It was Ruins, but he was on Nyx versus Visor, and he got cleaned.
Yeah.
Zeneku absolutely had his number, and now he's like, okay, we're going to do this the opposite way.
I mean, either that or like we're establishing at this tournament like the deepest of Quake lore, where it's like Nyx and Pfizer have this huge rival, and DK and BJ are like, man, you don't want to. Yeah, I don't know. As soon as the Quake television series comes out, we'll get to see these characters fleshed out and the lore behind it. But here we're going to see it right here in this lower bracket final or lower bracket matchup, Wenger versus cha1n. It should also be said before we hop in, the winner of this matchup is going to go on to face Razy.
Yeah.
Interesting on both sides, whether that's versus cha1n or whether that's versus his own teammate Wenger. Each presents its own unique situations. But we will see this game, and then after that, we'll see cha1n versus Maxter in the upper bracket finals. Stick around, kiddos.
Yeah, most definitely. It's been an incredible day so far. The tournament continues to develop in storylines and in skill, and this is another one. First blip from Wenger, though. I think a lot of people's favorite coming into this final day. So he needs to step up to the mark, but I'm quietly confident against cha1n. There's nothing from the draft anyway that I'm looking at and going, it's going to spin one way or the other. Obviously, it's going to come down to execution, and cha1n's coming into this feeling confident. There's definitely no pressure on his shoulders, and that's the big thing for me. Wenger obviously has a lot of pressure coming in as the defending champion.
Right.
He's now seen as that upper level of a player in the scene, and cha1n has just come into this obviously believing in himself, but at the end of the day, no one's looked at cha1n and thought he would get this far, so what's he got to lose?
I mean, like you heard him in the interview, right? He basically threw away his notes, said, I'm not even going to look at this anymore. I know what I'm getting myself into. I'm just going to focus on my own game and just try to counter each opponent the best that I can.
Playing with feeling.
Yeah.
Might be the best strategy here at the end of the competition anyway. And again, I think these picks and bans kind of present for some interesting situations. How will Wenger recover from his loss in the upper bracket, and how will he do versus cha1n? Well, we're kind of moments away from figuring that out.
I think every time I've casted cha1n in this event, he's won. I don't know if that's a sign. I don't know what that means. I'm just throwing it out there for you, DJ Weep, for when you make your prediction.
You know, wow. I learned something after game 2 is just stop making predictions because you don't know what is going to happen. In fact, I think we completely avoided them in Razy versus Rafa too. But, you know, I think a lot of it comes down, there's a lot of what ifs, right? Is like, is Wenger able to bounce back? Is cha1n in the exact same form as he was last night? If we're in that situation, I think we're going to go 5 games. But I kind of have to feel, I don't know, man.
Thanks,
I don't know.
cool.
I'm out
Thank you
of
for
here.
the
I'm out of
valuable
here, man.
input.
I'm out of here. Do with your channel points what you please.
I can't believe you
I'm
just
not betting on
dropped
this one.
that.
There he goes. Yeah, he's
Oh,
taking off his
man.
microphone.
He's
gone.
just done.
Taking it off.
He's
gone.
actually done. What did we pay him for? Jesus.
Absolutely horrendous behavior by DJ Weed. But on that note, we are jumping into the first map of this series. Wenger versus cha1n. Winner moves on. Loser will drop out of the finals.
Yeah. So looking at this particular matchup, we know Anarchy wants to play at a fast pace, but at the end of the day, it will be the Slash that sets that tempo. And so can Wenger keep on top of the Anarchy? And we know one of the key narratives of this particular matchup between these two players is the rail. Who's going to hit their rails? I mean, we've seen Wenger already today struggling with that particular weapon, in part because of the way in which Maxter was playing very heavily around an angle-based game. cha1n, in some ways, has a similar playstyle, loves to play the angles, has a good read on his opponents. So there's the same challenge that exists.
Chunky rocket right there. Doesn't even need the rail if you can hit the directs like that. Mega has been taken by cha1n. Wenger has picked up heavy, around 5 seconds between the two of them. Here's the teleporter. There we go. Landing a shot. Looking for more, but is going to prioritize positioning.
Yeah.
And denying those small armors from cha1n.
I call that a confident shot. Doesn't really mean anything, but it lets your opponent know your game is on. You feel better for it. And you're right, it's a heavy battle for positioning. Said this is a battle of speed, but at the moment, both players content with their own side of the maps, continue to trade items. cha1n actually putting a quite heavy delay onto that Mega. Wenger won't know now that timing. Not that he's contesting it, but what it does do is it allows cha1n to put more pressure on this next heavy. It connects with a couple of rails. You can then turn that into more and more sustained pressure.
I like what Wenger was doing right there. Just holding back, sitting under rockets, surveilling everything, but these rockets are huge! cha1n holds his own.
Welcome to LAN, Wenger. Huge defensive rockets and the follow-up through the doorway. I completely agree with you. What I liked about the play from Wenger originally was the peek out, do a little damage, peek back. What I don't like is then the continuation into an enemy who is ready for you. And that is exactly the situation cha1n found himself in and has been gifted 2 starting frags.
After that initial burst of LG, Wenger should have been like, he's turning to the right.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to continue this. He will be able to recover, turn around,
Well, if you
force
want
me
to
through
push,
the choke.
there's many other options he could have chosen. Either way, it was a mistake from Wenger, and cha1n has punished it as he well should. And cha1n is just playing nice and stable now. And this is what we were talking about in our intro. cha1n just adapting, playing around his opponent, not necessarily just the map. Often he doesn't really care about the items. He just wants to have that positioning. He wants to catch opponents when they're pathing around the map. And you can see how he's positioned on that kind of curvature. Just so he has full vision and awareness of the entire map. He has given over both major items though, but again, this is just cha1n's playstyle. He's got that starting stack. He just wants to maintain a better defensive position and force his opponent into him. And that's exactly what Wenger's trying to do. Not actually looking to use that rail. He's trying to force the issue now.
The most worrying thing to me, ZSX, 14% railgun accuracy from Wenger. This is reminiscent of some very, very dire, dark times in his previous matchup against Maxter.
What a push by cha1n as he's jumped down. He's eaten a rail, but it's going to be a frag. And Wenger, yeah, looking a little bit out of sorts, a continuation of before. And 14%, that is really, really brutal, Flea. I think Wenger's doing a challenge to win the Quake World Championships with the same aim as DJ Wheat. But it's not...
Not quite that bad, okay? 14%, we dreams of those. But hey, I'm worried, Dan, I really am, because for Wenger, this map, the first one, is so incredibly important. One of the things that we have seen several times in these big tournaments is that if Wenger gets off to a bad start, it sometimes carries over, right? Think of Iron Fist. Think of other stage finals that we've seen where he's looking good to begin with, but then it crumbles. One bad map or one bad matchup, and all of a sudden, it just carries over. So he needs to reset, and so far, I haven't been able to see him do that at all.
No, and some of these pushes already are somewhat desperate in their motivation. I feel already he is trying to now concentrate more on consistent damage output, using the LG in particular, trying to force some close combat fights, but he's taking some very risky maneuvers to make it happen. Look, just charging through these doorways. cha1n is set up, and this is what we talked about in terms of cha1n. He keeps a mental awareness of what his opponent is trying to do. And that's why I'm saying it was almost Maxter-esque in essence. He's just plus backing. He's not even contesting the items because that is a risky situation for him. And cha1n is an opponent that can and has won on very low score lines a number of times. He doesn't rack up a lot of frags, but he doesn't give a lot of frags up. He's quite content with the 3-0 lead. And just look, he's just managing these choke points. This is a better attack point though, busting out of that TP. Good rockets coming out from Wenger, and this time he does convert. The mix up, the switch up, that's what he needed.
It was really striking to see how Wenger had been in full control for, what, a minute and a half or so, and still cha1n was repelling him constantly. Triballs, rail, rockets, nothing that Wenger was able to make happen on the map. But now, Wenger finally getting his first frag of this series. Oh! That is the risk of playing these really fast champions, Dan. Before you know it, the speed carries you so far out into the open, and if you're not careful, a player with great awareness, and that is exactly what cha1n's been displaying so far, can easily take advantage of that.
Didn't mind that push so much. He's going to stick out for the Mega, just about picks it up. cha1n did connect, not with the second, but Wenger is on the ropes.
Nearly hitting a second one right there, cha1n.
But yeah, moving back, I didn't actually mind the push so much because cha1n had unfortunately been tickled by the ability of Wenger. So Wenger thought he could catch him by surprise, but cha1n, as you pointed out, just ultimately aware of what his opponent is up to, and did manage to prevent that push further. Good connection by Wenger. The impressive comes out, and we know how important hitting those back-to-back rails are against light champions. cha1n knows he's done a lot of damage. He pushes on up, but the Mega's there as well. The rockets are also good. He survives with 5 HP.
How did he live through that? Wenger needs a refrag. Will find it. Okay. Back to a 2-frag game. Look at the speed he's got. He knows that cha1n doesn't have rockets.
Yeah,
doesn't
so you
have
want to
rail.
push now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
This is the moment. He wants to capitalize on this moment. But oh my god, cha1n.
Lovely.
That's a lot of damage. No way that Wenger can contest for heavy right
Yeah,
now.
I think that's a little bit of a mistake by cha1n, because I think he should have popped the inject before that engagement, but maybe he didn't realize how much damage Wenger would do. Nevertheless, Wenger is beginning to tie this up. Got himself all the weapons he needs, so cha1n's going to be struggling. He hasn't got himself a rocket or a rail either. Wenger's also spotted him out down by the TP area. He's just trying to hold out, and cha1n's actually been holding on to his inject an awful lot. Only used it 5 times in this entire duel. That's in part because of the fact that he's playing against a slash. He's always keeping it in reserve in case he gets caught off guard by the speed of that slash.
Exactly.
But he is forced to pop it there and retreat back to this Mega.
26% rail from Wenger. He has improved somewhat, but still just half of what cha1n has been bringing to the board right now.
Yes, very, very similar story as we saw earlier in the day. Not quite as powerful as we saw from Maxter, but this is definitely a harder challenge in a very wide and open map. Blood Covenant playing with against Slash as well, so cha1n's definitely doing a good job to hold his own, but is now only limited to a 1-frag lead, and Wenger still got full control, and this is where it becomes problematic for cha1n, because he's not contesting his major items. He's not done any real damage just yet. This is a big item on the heavy. He has managed to steal it away, so good awareness that that was up, and Wenger's now peppering with the heavy machine gun because that rail is not working. So at least he's switching the weapons up.
Yes, I was just about to say that was clever on his behalf. He realized that he wasn't connecting with those rails, figured that heavy machine gun might end up doing less damage overall, but you're better off doing, you know what, 60 damage than missing another rail and getting 0.
Exactly.
So going for consistency over the less reliable rail.
I'm glad he listened to our previous cast and has taken the tips on board, so might lead him to victory on this particular map. He's gone in aggressively here, hasn't got an awful lot of stack, and cha1n does. cha1n's also got the inject, he's popped it, and he's going to be pushing on forward. He maybe expected a bit more aggression from Wenger, but once again, we're back into that stalemate of trading major items. There is a bit of a split there, so Wenger might feel confident to make a move. He's the one on the high ground position here. So if he does manage to hit a rail or even stop the aggression, there it is. Is he going to rocket jump up and go across? He's got his ability in his pocket, and he's getting ready for it. Here it comes.
Oh,
he's actually going the long way around. He knows.
Trail.
Oh no, he's been blocked. So it is shut down for now. Yet don't know about this one. Wenger busting through a doorway. cha1n escapes, but the damage is big from cha1n. Again, it's just one of these maneuvers where Wenger's trying to force himself onto cha1n. He knows he's only got 30 seconds to gain it though, so he has to now begin taking these risks, but cha1n is just playing the choke points, playing keep away. He could even rocket jump up, but instead just backs into a corner. He knows the slash is so weak and he will be taking the frag, and he will be taking game 1.
GG's for cha1n. Wenger. Yeah, desperation, I feel like, in that last minute, right? Not the best decisions that he had made. Of course, his back was against the wall. Time was not on his side, that he had to start making some very difficult decisions.
Yeah, and the problem is, obviously, he was in this position where he was forced to make this decision, but I think in the context of the whole game, we're seeing a very similar situation for Wenger. He's not connecting with his shots. He was trying different strategies that he wasn't doing earlier in the day, but the problem for me is just how effective cha1n is at reading his opponents. Luckily, cha1n isn't hitting anywhere near as hard as Maxter was. That's why there's more openings for Wenger. That's why he was pushing it, but the big and more confusing issues was early game. Pushing through choke points when cha1n is ready for him. Twice, going up jump ends where cha1n is ready for him. That was the type of desperate measures that we haven't seen in the past in terms of mistakes from somebody like Wenger, and he just cannot afford to make them because cha1n, he's very good at not giving you an inch.
Now the statistics also tell a very interesting story. I'm sure we'll have them up on the screen in a moment, but 3,000 damage for cha1n versus 1,800 by Wenger. And that deficit, that difference, comes almost entirely down to the rockets. Say 1,300 for cha1n versus just 300 by Wenger, and that says it all. That's the defensive play by cha1n, holding down the angles. Every single time that Wenger tries to make a move catch up with him, he just bombards him with the rockets, repels him back, and stays in the lead.
Yeah, and even still, with there wasn't a huge amount of damage difference with the LG. Definitely felt that Wenger was trying to abuse that LG advantage because he has a very, very strong lightning gun, obviously. But he was going in with the LG, going with the rockets, but not really doing any damage because cha1n was so well positioned and ready for it. It was almost like he was reading him because he was never caught off guard. So has to put that behind him, and now we get to see what Wenger's made of. It's been a rough start to the day in games 1, 2, 3, and now 4 that he's playing in. So, you know, he's 0-4 on day 3 of the QuakeCon World Championship Finals.
I believe you said it on day 1. These are the moments where the boys become men, right? This is the make it or break it for Wenger. He has to push on through and make these big changes happen. Now, thinking back of their match history, ZSX, this would also be huge for cha1n because so far they've played 4 times during the Quake Pro League. Wenger has won every last one of those. Yes, the final 2 games were close, 2-1 victories only, but still, Wenger has been consistently beating his opponent during the league.
He has indeed.
But today, this is looking like a whole different cha1n and a far less convincing Wenger.
But what I like now is we're moving on to Ruins, and he's playing Nyx, and this is a map and a champion where he can slow the tempo down. You don't need to really play around that rail, hit your shots as hard as you can. The key is not losing the lead early, not making that early mistake. And it's a tough position now because Wenger's obviously low on confidence. He wants to assert himself. He wants to get a lead and start feeling better, but you have to manage the game. You're very vulnerable on Nyx. It's a good map to slow the pace, and it's a good map to play around that T-junction at the top and just keep it nice and slow, but have to be wary of that visor. We saw, as you mentioned earlier, Zeniku using that perfectly against cha1n yesterday, and we've seen it a couple of times at the event. If the Nyx isn't using a Ghost Walk, you're going to have a lot of uptime on that piercing sight. So again, Wenger really needs to be careful here.
This is a difficult balance that he will have to strike. Let's see if he's up for the task. As we are loading into map 1, kicking it off once again through the eyes of Maestro Wenger from Italy, taking on cha1n, representing the final player from North America, Canada to be precise.
Absolutely. Wenger hitting the first round, feeling better from that. cha1n will have all the weaponry that he needs as well. Used the piercing sight off the spawns, hasn't got that quite yet, but Wenger will not be using his Ghost Walk just yet. So cha1n has a free use of all of the time vials to build that cooldown up. And as we would expect, just keep trading these items. Wenger's in the vicinity to just get some information on when that's going to be picked up. cha1n's delaying that flee.
Indeed he is. Significantly so. Nearly 15 seconds between both of these items. Now Wenger was holding down the center area of the map for quite some time. Now let's take a look. Heavy is about to spawn. It's up in a second. There we go. Wenger is able to secure that one. He's also got all the weapons to work with. Goes up the bounce pad after eating a rail from cha1n. Now keep in mind, railgun of course does 90 flat damage no matter who you're hitting. But that will hurt so much more on a light champion like Nyx that has no starting armor.
They're both waiting. I think Wenger doesn't know. cha1n jumps across. Big rocket coming out. And lovely one connecting on the double jump there. Wenger holding on to the Ghost Walk, but he is available. cha1n sneaking in. He popped the Ghost Walk just to see what shenanigans were going on from Wenger's POV. And Wenger is obviously extremely hesitant to move out on the map, and cha1n already getting the upper hand, but that's another signal of cha1n's style. Forfeiting the item to take a better position and try and catch his opponent off guard, and because of that, he's won the full rotation.
Well, this is a recurring challenge on the map that is Ruins, right? When you're playing a light champion, you have to rely to such a great extent on those small armor pickups, but they are in very vulnerable positions, out all the way in the open on these plazas, these squares on either side of the map, so going for them is always risky, as Wenger just found out.
Yeah, and Wenger is in a lot of trouble right now. Popped the Ghost Walk before. cha1n is on the hunt. He knows how low his opponent is. Just getting the time bars for maximum efficiency. And Wenger's going to work his way around to these light armors, but they are often death traps as they are both completely exposed, and Wenger's forced just to hide down below. The Ghost Walk's back up now, so he's feeling slightly more comfortable. as he's not quite railable either, but he's also got nothing to work with and has to give up full map control once again. But this is okay as a Nyx. If you get up to that starting scat, which he nearly is, you feel okay. You just have to manage your positioning.
This is a very, very slow-paced game in comparison to map 1. Saw a lot more frags coming out. But here, 3 minutes in, 0-0. Nice rail from Wenger. That's what I want to see more of, Dan. Those kinds of shots, they need to be connecting on a consistent basis.
Oh,
there
lovely.
we go. Beautiful. Rocket sends cha1n flying up into the corner of the room, stuck, and the LG float finishes him off. Oh, Wenger knows exactly where he spawned. Can he finish it off? Out comes the rail. Oh, gauntlet on gauntlet. cha1n. No doubt that cha1n's going to go down here. And indeed, Wenger converts 1 frag into 2.
And this time it's cha1n that makes the mistake. He had the piercing sight up, so he felt confident to just jump across, hit a rail, but you're also jumping into a choke point where Wenger is more than ready and spamming those rockets. So there you go. A little bit unfortunate from cha1n's POV, but that maybe is the boost of confidence Wenger needs to kickstart this comeback in the lower bracket.
Heavy will be the next item up, 5 seconds. Don't think cha1n's going to make a play for it. No, Wenger is just going to secure it, but cha1n putting himself in a position where he can at least hear the item being picked up. So he knows the item timing for both Mega and Heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to deal some sort of damage onto the major items. He's not even really contesting the exits. And he's going to look... It looks like he's trying to set up very, very early for this next Heavy. He's got all the weapons he needs, but actually he's just setting a trap. Allows Wenger to drop on down. Hasn't popped the piercing sight yet. He might do just to manage the exit of this item.
I think at this point, cha1n's strategy is kind of to just slow play it, stay clear from his opponent, at least until he has the piercing sight, right? And that's exactly what happened now. Earlier when you mentioned it, he wasn't even challenging the exits. Why? Because he doesn't have the piercing sight. So instead, he's just going to keep his base stack going, wait for that ability, and then use it as a way to get that upper hand over Wenger. And that's exactly what he just did. Good positioning, good use of the sight, but Wenger claps right back. Good rail in defense. Both players eyeing the Heavy. cha1n pushes on through, takes so much damage.
Nice.
Wenger decides not to chase, sticks to the basics, prioritizes the item.
Yeah, he has the lead here. He did have the Ghost Wall, so could have probably committed, but wants to play the longer game. He's got cha1n on the ropes, and this is definitely a map where you can shut your opponent out. So he can now pressure if cha1n wants to loop around to that lower light armor. But he's found cha1n here. Could pop the aggressive Ghost Walk. I think he's thinking about it. But cha1n is ready for that, and you know he's actually did use the piercing sight for the previous rotation as well. Wenger might not be aware of that. Is why he's hesitated.
I mean, that's just one of the ways in which a lot of people are saying that Wenger kind of, you know, reflects Rafa's playstyle, right? That not chasing down your opponent, knowing he's weak, knowing you could probably get the kill, but realizing that if you have to push through, you're likely to take quite a bit of damage yourself. And then if he gets a good respawn, all of a sudden he takes away a major. So instead, sticks it really to the fundamentals, goes for the items, and is now building momentum.
What Rafa is really good at, and is what Wenger has been, but is not feeling confident of at the moment, is using that stack at the right timings. It's forcing a fight, you know, a good 5 seconds before the next round of pickups, getting the kill, re-snacking, and rinse and repeat. And that's something that Wenger's looking more hesitant at the moment. But, you know, when you're a Nyx, maybe rightly so, you don't want to overexpose yourself. You don't want to get back out of control. He's wrestled his way into control, and it's about managing your opponent now, and he's beginning to connect with more shots.
That's exactly what Wenger's fan base is hoping to see, right? So many people love him. The young stallion from Italy. One of the youngest players in the Quake Pro League.
Still,
yep. Mega is about to spawn, and this is looking really good for Wenger. If he can continue playing the way he has now, this should be in the bag.
Yeah, and he's limited the effectiveness of the piercing sight as well by not overcommitting. I think he's working on the assumption it's always up. There you go. There's the aggressive Ghost Walk. He's got the timing. He knows cha1n is far too early. So there you go. Perfect play from Wenger. And this is where you feel quite useless as a visor in these situations. If you're not making any value out of your piercing sight, unfortunately, there's nothing else your champion offers you. And Wenger's doing a great job of not overexposing himself.
If that had happened 2 seconds later, he wouldn't have chased. because he knew that then he would not have been able to exit the Ghost Walk before Heavy spawned, and then cha1n would have been really stacked for that fight. But he realized, understood so perfectly that indeed cha1n was overcommitting, was jumping down there just a second too early, and that gave him everything he needed to get the item plus the frag.
Yep, and what we're seeing in this particular matchup is much better hit rate from Wenger across the board, but also just complete dominance of the items. And cha1n has not had an in since Wenger got back control and got the lead.
50% railgun, 55% LG for Wenger, as you just said. A whole lot better. Massive improvement over what we saw on map 1.
Yeah, he's taking a bit of damage there, but once again, he's playing just a very simple ABC style now. Rinse and repeat. cha1n, though, has hit a number of rails in the row. And this is why Wenger will be more cautious now for the next rotation. Plus, he's playing against the clock. We're less than 2 minutes to go on this map 2. And Wenger has a sizable lead on Ruins, given that he's playing a Nyx. cha1n is even forfeiting, probably contesting on this heavy now.
I mean, at this point, cha1n needs a miracle,
Yeah.
right? If you want to get 5 frags against the Nyx on a map like Ruins, yes, you have the Visor, one of the most effective at chasing people down on this map. Or not so much chasing down, but figuring out their location and then manufacturing a plan around that. But what do? You don't just have to kill him once, you have to kill him twice for every frag, because he has that Ghost Walk, he just pops it, and you have to find him all over again. And before you know it, who knows, get yourself some bubbles, some small armors, and you've burned another 20 seconds. And even 20 seconds, that's time that cha1n doesn't have.
Yeah, and we've reached that point now of the map where Wenger doesn't need to do anything. I mean, in all honesty, he could probably take his hands off the keyboard and still win the game. 50 seconds to go.
Wouldn't recommend it.
I don't think, neither would I. But yeah, with 45 seconds to go, probably another frag coming out from Wenger's perspective here. He's begun to settle into this series.
GGs are called.
GGs are called, and Wenger has his first win on the board for today. Let's go.
Happy to see it. Hopefully, this will serve as a big confidence boost for him, right?
Yeah, definitely. And this is why I was happy to see Ruins coming up here, as I said. It's a map where you can manage it more strategically, play it slower, and really build yourself into the set. And that's exactly what we saw. It's a very cagey opening from both of these players, and Wenger slowly eked his way in. He began to adapt around cha1n as well. We didn't see the aggression as we saw on map 1 when he was playing that slash, trying to assert himself into the map. Much more of a managed play style. So I'm glad he got that pick in the Nyx, and I'm glad it was on Ruins.
True.
But we're moving on once again.
Next map is going to be Insomnia, where we are getting, if I'm not mistaken, the BJ being played by Wenger versus the Death Knight coming out on cha1n side.
The exact matchup we saw from Maxter on to Wenger. I like both picks here, honestly. I think, well, we're at that stage in map 3 where there's not a lot of choice, but they both played pretty decently. I think the way in which cha1n will play the DK will be very similar to the way in which Maxter played it, which is, again, just play the angles, play the rail. The flame strike is there if Wenger wants to push in. So that's the balance, is that similar to map 1, Wenger has to be more moderated in when he pushes through these choke points, because you can manage, there's so many angles, there's so many choke points on Insomnia, it's difficult to break into either the Mega or the Heavy room. So Wenger has to be wary of that, but at the same time, he can't be sucked into that just rail-based game, because that's what he was losing out on against Maxter, and he probably could lose out against cha1n as well.
Depends on how he aims, right? Map 2,
True.
Ruins, what we just saw, he was definitely out-railing cha1n on that one. So if it comes down to those rail battles, I think Maestro Wenger will come out on top of those. But indeed, like you said, if cha1n has had the opportunity to watch the previous match, which I'm sure he has, he knows exactly how to approach this. Maxter put on a masterclass on Death Knight against Wenger. And if he can do the same thing, this is an uphill battle for Wenger.
Yeah, it is, but the momentum began to shift, I think, during Ruins. Wenger was hitting more and more rails. cha1n began to miss and didn't impose himself on the map. It wasn't a plan B from cha1n this side, so I was a little bit worried, like looking at cha1n's perspective on how he was managing that. It was obviously a very difficult situation because Wenger was being very careful and cautious around the piercing sight, and so when the limited value of that came out, cha1n didn't really have an alternative. There was a couple of occasions in there that he really tried to push, but it was just a little bit too late. The big mistake came early game when he made that move into the Mega area and lost control completely. So that's a big watch out now, is that Wenger has begun to find his feet a little bit, and cha1n has to be more cautious moving into Insomnia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that last map is also going to have been a bit of a wake-up call for cha1n, right? Like that first map, okay, that went down easy, right? The rails, Wenger was hitting next to nothing, but now he knows that he's got to be careful, right? He's got that Flame Strike, such a powerful ability. A lot of pros have been talking about just how good it has been feeling in a LAN environment, right? Like it feels only yesterday like the Death Knight was a champion that you picked maybe in a best of 7, a very last champion when you absolutely had to, but now look at him. He's dominating these picks and several maps, and that's going to be interesting for Wenger to deal with as well. He's got to make sure that he doesn't get sucked into those fights or he's too close, too personal, because that Flame Strike, it will demolish him.
Very true. But on the counter, the one thing I'm looking at from a cha1n perspective is that if we look at his run in this tournament and how he's been successful, a large part of it has been in managing the aggression of his opponents. You know, he beat Sparty, he beat Avik. So to get to this point, he's been playing opponents that want to push him, that want to be aggressive and get in his face. And when cha1n plays his best, it's when he's dropping into the entryways, he's managing the choke points.
Yep.
And so he's using his opponent's playstyle against them. That happened in map 1 to a certain degree. We saw from Wenger pushing through with the slash. Map 2, that didn't happen. And then when they were playing that standoffish game, more control-based, more strategical, there wasn't really a plan B from cha1n. He wasn't pushing Wenger. Exactly. He wasn't forcing the issue. And that can play into Wenger's advantage now if he's realized that.
It's also going to come down to how well cha1n can keep these fights, or Wenger rather, can keep these fights at like that medium distance, because that is where his ability shines the most, right? cha1n wants up close and personal. Wenger is hoping for perhaps a middle distance, right? Where he can get out that dual wield, dual LG, melt his opponent. We've seen it before during this tournament, and it can definitely happen again. Now, with that being said, we are loading into the map. Warm-up is coming to a close. Keep in mind, this is a lower bracket match. Whoever loses this series is out.
Yeah, so one of these two superstars, if you will be finding not an early grave, since they're quite late into the tournament, but a premature grave for their standards. We are starting over on cha1n's POV. The Canadian playing the Death Knight. Hasn't got a rail yet, so just working his way around to try and bully Wenger away. And Wenger over on the BJ with the high ground and with the rail, already connecting off the bat as well. And something we often see in Insomnia is just this trading of items as well.
Yeah.
They've got two very heavily protected areas. It's difficult to get a full lockdown on both. And you can quite easily punish your opponent for any undue moves into the vicinity. cha1n, more than aware that Wenger is waiting there. To bide his time to get out. Without the rail, he's very hesitant for obvious reasons. Oh, he's actually pushing in. He knows he's got the flame strike. Bounces Wenger away. He's done a lot of damage. Decides to retreat and use that as breathing space.
It's also quite difficult to get from one to the other item, right? This isn't like Corrupted Keeper. You can basically have a straight walk on over. There's so many of those little nooks and crannies. You've got the bounce pad connecting the two. There's a lot of places where your opponent can throw a spanner in the works and block you completely. Now cha1n landing a few nice rails, and here we go. cha1n is delaying the mega health, considerably so.
He loves to do this.
We've seen him do it before, to great effect.
Question is, how does he play off of it? If he knows the heavy timing, is he going to make a move across? Because he's going to be just about on time. And Wenger's managing the choke point with that spam, and you can see how difficult it is to enter the room. He's walking his way in, and there goes the dual wield, which is cha1n's signal to leave the room. Wenger's still not dropping down. In fact, actually going to work his way to the mega, but he does not know. He does not know, please.
I was waiting to mention it, Zan. I was waiting to call that out. Indeed, Wenger was unable to hear when the mega was picked up, so he had no idea. The offset, the delay, used to perfection. cha1n completely throws his opponent off. Wenger has no idea, takes that rail, says to himself, okay, I'll just give you the heavy, but I'm going to go take mega for myself. And cha1n's like, nah. That mega ain't there. Gets both of the items, and Wenger drops the first frag.
I did enjoy that, and he delayed it just long enough because Wenger did get there on time, but perfect play by cha1n, and now he's the one in control. No flame strike up. He's working his way around, trying to trap Wenger. Wenger will now steal away that mega with the dual wield as well. So a little bit of a mistake from cha1n there, giving his opponent that. But no, this is why you pick Death Knight. Wenger flying out into the full force of that champion. Fortunately, walks away with his life for now, but he's also walked out of position for this next heavy, as cha1n is going to easily sweep this one up.
It almost doesn't matter how outstacked you are, right? If you can get your opponent in a position like that, and then that Flame Strike comes out, you also get the knockback significantly so. And that's a nice bit of tribal damage as well. 105 to the face. Wenger is going to push in exactly as he should. Still, decent amount of damage dealt by cha1n. That last super shoddy blast helped a lot to equalize the stacks at least.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about players getting swept up in the speed of champions. I think cha1n got swept up in the flame strike there. Tried twice with the bounce pad to get up and fire it off, which it's a bridge too far at that point. Need to take your losses and run away. Wenger back in this one now with the high ground. Great rail from the low ground from cha1n. Mega's up now as that split maintains. And they're eking each other out. Wenger without a rail himself. This is why he's struggling to move and leave the area. Does manage to get out just in time. Has the jeweled up as well, so he's contemplating pushing in. Just trying to listen out. He's got the timing. He wants to catch him up the jump up, but cha1n backs out, going through the low ground.
Just spamming those rockets. Oh, rocket jumping out there very early on.
Yeah, too early. Mistiming from Wenger's perspective.
So
has to go back on in. This is an awkward engagement from Wenger's perspective.
Still gets away with almost no damage taken, so no harm, no fall. Oh, did he catch a glimpse of cha1n? Should have, I think.
Yeah, but cha1n is now gone. He might have just had the jump pad there. Wenger's going to go back around the long way, working his way to light armor in the upper ground. cha1n absolutely just vacates instantly, and this is what cha1n does now. If he doesn't feel confident to take an item for free, then he often doesn't contest it. He obviously wants to do some exit damage if he can, but cha1n is more about the self-preservation, taking a position that is in a choke point, cutting off an exit or an entryway. Plays a much longer game. Once again, he knows he's not in the right state of mind to contest for this heavy, so I'll just play a longer game, work my way around to the high ground, try and catch you for the next rotation.
And Wenger has to be so measured in how he approaches this, right? If you just look at the stacks alone, oh, there we go, that's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah, good catch. If you would just look at the stack difference alone, what am I saying? Set of stacks, you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I'm going grey, but not that grey.
If you just look at the stack difference alone, you'd say, okay, why doesn't he just push in, right? He's got twice his stack. But the Death Knight, the Flame Strike, the defensive plays by cha1n, he's got to be so calculated, so collected when he takes those fights.
Oh,
Ultimately,
big rockets from cha1n, low. Wenger
Close.
luckily does convert there, but what we're seeing from Wenger now is more and more tempo. He's feeling it, he's getting confident, he's got the full stack, as you rightly put, and this is the risky side of cha1n's playstyle. If you just give that map away, you give that breathing space to your opponent, and you're not finding the angles to cut them off, they can just maraud around the map,
True.
and it becomes scary. There's a lot of pressure on you to execute perfectly in those situations if they catch you, and unfortunately for cha1n, in both of these ones, Wenger's got away. Even if it's with low health, he's got away and managed to restack. So from my perspective, definitely want to see now more positivity from cha1n. Work your way in. Try and pressure these items a bit more, because if Wenger begins to feel himself, that's the trouble. But all things considered, it's been a fairly slow-paced series so far from both these players.
just 4 frags. I mean, they're not really playing the fastest champions either, like we've sometimes seen on Insomnia, but still, a lot of respect being given. No one wants to transgress. Good rail by Wenger, though. Oh, but cha1n still pushing in. He's kind of starting to feel the pressure now, Dan. Just moments ago, you were talking about how cha1n is not going to do anything unless he feels like he's in the exact right state to make a play. But hey, he can't keep waiting for that forever. 3 minutes left for 2 frags, perfectly doable, but against a player as defensively gifted as Wenger, that's difficult.
It is indeed. You know, Wenger's not massively healthy, and without the dual wield, there is an opportunity here over on this next Mega to take the advantage to Wenger. The Flame Strike is up. Wenger will obviously be aware of that, so how can cha1n capitalize upon this advantage? Because he'll have a stack advantage for the time being, and he'll also have the ability advantage as well. But Wenger's waiting out with the angle, so he does neutralize all of that stack. And cha1n now has to go to a plan B. With time ticking out, 2.5 minutes to go, cha1n needs to find a way to kill Wenger once and then twice in order to equalize this particular map.
Good rail. It's taken down a lot of the advantage that Wenger got out of that heavy. Now Mega has been taken by cha1n. He does have a stack advantage to work with, but Wenger is playing this so well. Holding down the area that he knows he can... Oh, I don't know about that one. I don't know if he meant to drop down there, Dan. I don't think so. That was quite a misplay. Clean into the flames. That's exactly what cha1n was hoping for.
Yeah, he may be a masochist, but I don't think that was exactly what he intended either. And now he's in a world of pain. cha1n's got a clean pickup on that Mega. Wenger hasn't got an LG, hasn't got a rail. He's just going to hope that cha1n runs into one of these choke points. The heavy's up in 10 seconds time. Is Wenger going to stick around for a fight here? I think he is, and that's not the play. Once again, dropping into a fully stacked cha1n who gets an easy frag. Oh, is the pressure getting to the young Italian? As once again, he's given up a lead. And cha1n has full control.
I just heard a few expletives come out of Wenger right there. He is not happy about how those fights went down. cha1n pushing in relentlessly slow, perhaps too much. Oh, those are some solid defensive rockets. It's still a tight game, right? So Wenger's really not looking all that bad, especially if he lands just a few more shots of that. Indeed, makes it happen. Picks up the railgun too. Good shot as well. That is so bad for cha1n, because now he needs to find himself some armor before he can really start chasing his opponent down.
The first time all game, cha1n makes a fairly big mistake, trying to push in on Wenger, who was set up for that, bouncing his opponent around, and now he's in a world of trouble. Wenger out of rockets, though, only got a rail to work with. But that might be enough. Restacks there, gets away to the high ground once again, and with 30 seconds to go, there's no silly maneuvers needed. He doesn't have to contest for this heavy, and he won't. He'll just play in this courtyard.
That missed rail, that's the only lifeline that cha1n's going to get. He has been able to restack, walk away with the heavy for free. Now he just needs to find Wenger. Wenger's proving to be slippery. Oh, that rail. I think that's gonna be GG. cha1n needs a miracle right now. Wenger knows that all he has to do is stay away from that flame strike, and cha1n makes the wrong call, goes left when he should have bobbed right. And that makes it so that Wenger gets a map lead.
A close one at that.
Oh, yeah.
It got messy at times and a bit awkward at times as well with some of those encounters, but it was very slow, very calculated. He should definitely count himself a little bit lucky to walk away with that one, as there was some big mistakes towards the end, trying to impose himself. But equally, you know, I do want to see more proactiveness from cha1n as well.
Very little LG damage from cha1n. That's the main thing that stands out to me. Just 120. Wenger doing 10 times as much LG damage as his opponent. And that just shows that he was the one who was on the hunt for most of it, right? cha1n was trying to get a lot of those defensive rockets out. Clearly watched the VOD against Maxer, realized that Flame Strike together with rockets around the corner is a golden play. But the LG, the pushes, Wenger played this expertly.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, just look at these kills. Beautiful.
My favorite is definitely still the mistiming at the beginning.
Oh, that's what happened. The rocket behind him pushed him off. Definitely did not want to drop down, just wanted to take a little bit of a step down towards that lower ledge, but the rocket against the wall sent him down, and that was unfortunate. But Wenger showing that he is a veteran, even at this age, keeping his cool, bringing it back.
Bringing it back indeed. That could have been a calamity for Wenger, but he claws it back and takes this map 3 away and puts him up 2-1 in the series. What are we moving on to now?
Deep Embrace, Galena versus Kiel. For me personally, this is the first time I'm getting to cast a Kiel game this entire finals.
I believe I casted one when Dramis picked it on Vale. Yes, I did, and there were pineapples for days. But this is the first time in kind of the later stages of the tournament I've seen a heavy champion pretty much per se. And it's on Deep, where we know in the past it was one of the early meta picks, the Kiel. But I think as people adjusted and the tempo of the map begun to emerge, it definitely fell off very radically. And so it's more of an interesting pick, and I know there's not a lot of choices left. It's going to be difficult for cha1n here. We know he likes to play slower, and he's going to have to. At the same time, it's going to be hard to set the tempo extremely quickly on that Galena, as that in itself is not a pick we see a lot of either.
It's also a little bit worrying for cha1n that he's the first one who has to play a heavy, right? I feel like there's almost this kind of game of chicken going on. Like, can you force your opponent into the heavy pick before you actually have to play it yourself, right? Unless you're Rafa. Rafa has at times just gone out and picked the heavy early on. But other than that, it's really been trying to keep on and away from those heavies as long as you can. But here we go. cha1n will be the first one to play a tank, meaning that he's got a huge hitbox, relatively low movement speed, and the LG on LAN is murderous.
It is indeed, and I know in the previous encounters we were talking about Wenger trying to manage the game a bit more. I actually want to see him now go aggressive. I want to see him get on top of that kill, really push it to the limit, force the kill to panic, because this is a map where you can force the advantage a lot more. We're not looking at Insomnia anymore. We're not looking at a Blood Covenant where these choke points, these hard entryways, it's a lot more open and it's a lot smaller. So you can set the tempo fast if you get that high ground. And particularly around the LG, as we pointed out there, where cha1n is barely even using it. If you can get the kill in these situations where it's forced to use an LG, could be pretty painful for cha1n.
It absolutely could be, and that is why I'm worried for the Canadian that Wenger, if he can continue playing the way he did on the previous map, is going to walk away with a 3-1. So let's see. cha1n has to win this map. This is his final chance of staying in the tournament and advancing to the next round.
Yeah, we haven't seen cha1n play with the rail as heavily as he has done in previous engagements, and maybe that's in part because of the way in which Wenger was playing the previous maps as well, being able to find these angles to get into his face. But I did feel that cha1n was struggling to find the openings as he often has done in the past, particularly when we look at his Veil play. Very, very good at that. So you're going to have to be extremely creative with that on here as well. And probably just focus on maybe just playing around the heavy, that easier area to control. If you want the Galena to force their way up, then you can really punish them for it. But we'll see what cha1n has in his locker.
Starting it off on Wenger's point of view, running the Galena. Let's see how he is going to be able to use those totems. We have seen how important they can be earlier, right? In Rafa playing Razy, I think that the only reason that Razy managed to win Blood Covenant ultimately was because of those totems, the overstack heal that he got out of it, that played such an important part in his game plan. So let's see if Wenger is able to kind of hide them, stack them up, and get that train going.
Yeah, but damage efficiency is going to be the name of the game for Wenger as well. Using the Tri-Bolt as a on Q, using that spam from range just to make sure the kill isn't sitting in that very chonky stack, because even still, don't want to get into any encounters when you've got such a stack deficit. It's going to be difficult to get the overstack up for a number of times on this map, just given the geometry of it, but definitely is possible.
Still a very slow, respectful game.
Yeah, Wenger can't have a rail,
Yeah,
so he's struggling at the moment. The Keel is just camping over by that heavy as we said he would do. He doesn't want to expose himself, you know, so you want to force the Galena to get a bit frustrated, try and force the issue and come to you.
But ultimately, I don't think that this is bad for Wenger at all, because the longer that Keel waits to make a move, the easier it becomes for Wenger to get those totems up. He already has 2 of them on the board. The only downside is that he's, of course, on the mega side of the map, so he isn't going to get that much benefit out of having another heal.
No, exactly. It's more for a combat re-heal, but a bigger one. And oh no, he's been caught on the jump at another rail from Keel. This time the grenade does not hit. Keel is healthy enough to keep chasing. Wenger stuck behind the pillar. Keel knows his prey is on the run. Can he hit him? Yes, he can with a heavy machine gun, finishing off Wenger. And look how stacked that Keel still is.
Good rail. But there we go. The totems.
Oh, he knows it so early. cha1n knows the timing. Keep pushing up. Grenade. Can they have a conversion? No, cha1n actually just goes for the heavy machine gun. And there's the flick rail 1 second before. Expletives from behind me with frustration.
And another rail of the spawn. cha1n somehow making it work with just 30 points of health.
And he's playing the angles with the rail. Again, this is something he wasn't able to do on Insomnia. He didn't need to do on Blood Covenant, but now he is doing it. There's another great rail from cha1n as Wenger's trying to push in, use that LG as we discussed. Another great rail from cha1n, and he's down below. Heavy machine gun comes out again, just wants that efficiency. I think that was a fake rocket jump maybe? Either way, Wenger doesn't fall for it, falls back to the Mega instead. Keel decides against pressuring it, doesn't know the timing.
Then 75% railgun accuracy, nearly 1,000 damage done with the rail alone by cha1n. Wenger, zero.
Well, to be fair, he hasn't had it.
I know. I was about to say he hasn't been able to fire a single shot of rail so far. And that, of course, has made it so difficult for him to kind of whittle down that stack that the Keel has.
Exactly. It's really hard because cha1n is just playing this area and he's playing the angles, and he just knows that the Galena does not have a rail. And you have to remember, often on this map, you have a champion that is quick. You can get across that rail. Whereas a Galena, you're going to hike it across old school and you're not particularly quick. Oh, cha1n misses a critical rail there. This is Wenger pushing in, and now he's got himself a rail and done a huge amount of damage to his opponent. He's in the area for the heavy as well, which is going to spawn in the next 5 seconds, so Wenger will stick around. Meanwhile, cha1n is on cleanup duty, so he's going to go around, find some totems and begin to restack.
That was a very important rocket from
Yeah.
cha1n to hit, right? It did a lot of damage, plus it propelled Wenger.
No
forward.
way!
No, what? Oh, that has to be so frustrating for Wenger. Feels like he had him dead to his right, and then no, cha1n is just like, this ain't happening like that. Rocket, rocket, grenade, and still gets a trade out of it. That's nuts.
But now we see the shoe on the other foot as Keel doesn't have a rail. He does now, I believe. He doesn't have a rail. He actually backed off, so Keel doesn't have a rail. Has to work out how to play slow, how to get across the map. And he's
Nice.
caught once again, same position, deja vu, but there's no rocket for you this time. And it is 3-2. Barely clean frag. There was a grenade for his sins at the end. And cha1n is going to work his way in for this mega one peak rail. Actually swapped to the rocket just for some consistent damage. There's the second, and cha1n is on the ropes. And this is where the heavy becomes vulnerable. Got himself in with the grenades from below. Has a rail as well. Wenger!
Oh, what? Jesus Christ! What a beautiful shot. And also the grenade. Did you see? Those are the little tech. The little tech that we have in Quake. cha1n bounced that grenade off the pillar, back onto the item, forced Wenger back, did enough damage to bring him down to a railable stack, and then finished it with a flyby shot.
And more importantly, the grenade stopped Wenger from actually taking the heavy.
Yep.
He was standing back, waiting for it to blow up, and cha1n now is on a roll. Look at this stack, look at the momentum. But this is good play from Wenger. No way! The rail into grenade combo. I was about to say, just great heavy machine gun play from afar, but absolutely shut down by the Canadian. Wenger, he's trying to get in his face. Look at him, he's trying to keep the pressure up, but you're running into the area where cha1n wants you to run into. Yes, you've done lots of damage, and he probably can get the refrag as he comes flying in, but cha1n is ready for this, holding his S key, working his way around, and frustrating Wenger.
I feel like some people may be watching this thinking, maybe we've treated the heavies a little too harshly this tournament. But it's mainly just because of how sick cha1n has been playing this, how expertly he's been countering Wenger around that railgun area, baiting him into these fights that he's so uncomfortable in.
Well, I think this is the narrative we're in here. We're talking about when we're talking about I think Wenger's got it in his head that I can just melt this Keel with my LG. I've been doing it all land long in practice. And so look at him. He's just trying to run and bully him with LG, but cha1n is just playing around these choke points. He's playing around these corners and using the rocket and grenades to create chaos. And then from afar, he's picking Wenger apart. Wenger refuses to rail. He doesn't want to rail. He's had 4 rails all duel long. He just wants to run at his opponent. Playing Unholy Trinity here in
Good LG.
in the semi-finals. There's good LG, but again, it's beginning to work. It's beginning to work until it doesn't. And then
we've seen what happens when it doesn't, right? Then all of a sudden cha1n gets 2, 3 frags up. So Wenger has got to be careful. Oh,
what?
Completely unaware of the fact that cha1n was right below him, setting up a trap. Very reminiscent of what we saw Razy do against Raph on this very map earlier.
And I know we've been joking about it, you know, the expletives from behind, but I generally never heard Wenger get this frustrated before. It's constant, and he needs to restrain himself because a lot of this plus forward is coming from that frustration. And yes, it's working, but if cha1n just gets some good grenade, he can just create so much chaos and finish him off. Wenger needs to control his emotion. He needs to show the championship qualities we know he has, because he's still not winning, and it's still a big risk to take these fights.
Big risk indeed. Has to fall back. Oh, misses an important shot. I think that's a wise decision. Not showing his face, because if he had eaten another rail right there, ZSX still 15 seconds before heavy spawned. cha1n well aware of that, so if he had landed that shot, he would have just been like, okay, Wenger, you get to disappear off the map. I'm gonna start running the items again with 2 minutes left.
Oh, cha1n hits an absolutely critical rail there from nowhere. Good tribot spam as well. He's just standing around the pillars once again. These are the fights cha1n doesn't mind taking as Wenger's forcing his way in. Good use of the lightning up, but once again, the rail from cha1n is very, very good and very, very important. Just managing the aggression coming out from Wenger. Another big rail from cha1n. It is exchanged this time. And Wenger should have timing on this heavy, so he might be able to press his advantage. He's going around to the low ground. Misses a critical rail to start with cha1n. Dodging around 3 seconds to go, but another amazing rail from cha1n.
1,500 railgun damage by cha1n versus just 450 by Wenger. That's a world of difference. Wenger has indeed been all about DLG. 1,500 damage of DLG versus cha1n's 200. cha1n's really just like, I know that if I take one-on-one open LG fights with you, I'm done for. So he's doing everything in his power to play in the exact opposite way. Rail, rockets, grenades, but that's what he needs.
But this is the thing, it's the obvious choice to try and bully him with the LG, but when your opponent knows that, he's going to avoid it at all costs, and he just wants to take these fights. He's goading Wenger into these choke points, and there's so much burst damage. Now look at Wenger with a minute to go. Yes, he needs to get a frag, but he's given up the whole map. He's given up all his stack. cha1n is just playing it slow again. He's probably even just standing in the murder hole, waiting for his opponent, and there he is. Yes, the Mega is there, but it just puts you back to 100, and Wenger is in so much trouble. He's going in. He knows he can't afford to let cha1n get away with nothing. He's knocked him up, but cha1n's still there with the grenades. Another one comes out. 12 HP. cha1n's low as well. Wenger, can he find an angle? He needs to get something, and finally, 9 minutes into the game, the overstack comes up. He gets a second one. He's looking healthy. He bounces his way across. He knows cha1n's going to be here somewhere. Can he get him? He drops into an absolute murder hole, but somehow he gets out alive.
5 points of health. Oh! He went up the bounce, but then cha1n had an angle at him with the machine gun for just a second. Didn't manage to claim the frag right there, but we're all tied up. 6-6. Wenger, first one to secure a major item. Heavy is up. cha1n, can he make a move for it? He can. He does take it away.
We're going into overtime and deep embrace in this map number 4. cha1n clinging on for his life, but he's in a decent position now. And once again, he's going to hang around and say, hey, Wenger, if you want me, I am here. Come and get me. And that's exactly what he's doing once again. They don't exchange this time as they get back and probably would just reset. Is obviously next frag wins. No one's going to take a massive risk at this stage. Somehow Wenger still pushing on. He knows the Mega's up. He wants to take this fight.
Wants to take away the small armor first before making a move onto the Mega. There we go. Does manage to pick it up. Mega will go his way as well.
But cha1n's probably going to be in the vicinity. That's why Wenger double backs down. He waited to see where his opponent is, but cha1n's no. cha1n doesn't want any more of this bullshit. He's just going to stand around in an area where he can control the fight.
cha1n kind of caught the drop down and he wanted to perfectly align the items, and that's more or less exactly what he managed to do. He doesn't want there to be a split between them at this stage in the game.
Not.
What he wants is Wenger to push in a close area where he can unleash all the grenades he's been saving to get rid of some rockets and shoddy.
Great awareness by Wenger. Realized cha1n was sneaking in down below, and as you say that, the split of the items comes. He's actually delayed it a little bit more. Probably not enough to manage both of them, but enough to cause some disturbance. cha1n, he needs to get up, but he doesn't want to. He knows his enemy is going to be just above him. Wenger, he wants to drop, but we've seen this story before. Going to drop into some grenades in a corner. Just doesn't look good for you, and ups against it. Once again, cha1n gets the better of that engagement. This is just an unfortunate series of events we've seen time and time again. Wenger equalizes that, and cha1n picks up the heavy. Oh no, he's going to give up this Mega as well. Can he punish the pickup?
Hopefully so. He's got a good position for it. He knows that cha1n's right below him.
Yeah, but cha1n knows he's right above as well. He's bullying him away. Lovely rail from Wenger this time. He can't hit the second as he drops back down, just missing the head of his opponent. And he'll reset for this heavy, but now this is scary times for Wenger. cha1n going up the jump pad. He knows what timing it is. He knows what stack his opponent has. And can he push this one?
If cha1n had landed that rail, it might already have been over.
Yeah.
Luckily for him, Wenger does not eat the 90 and is now slowly edging around the outskirts of the map. cha1n knows exactly where he is, misses another critical rail again. cha1n now unable to deliver on the critical, crucial shots at this late stage of the game.
Yeah, Wenger goes on and he's got him caught, but a huge rocket from cha1n once again. We've seen that before. Wenger this time doesn't continue the push.
Good decision. Definitely did not want to make it happen. Oh!
cha1n is so low, but he can't get the health. Wenger's holding out for it. He's gone around the long way. cha1n takes the other way. They're dancing around. cha1n hits a rail. He's equal died again. Every time Wenger thinks he has an inch, cha1n just restores the balance. Big LG coming out. cha1n's now trapped. Surely this is the frag, but somehow he connects!
Still so close. I think DJ Weed kind of gave it away that he's already rejoined us at the dash.
No, I literally just walked up here.
Okay, Dan, you just...
Ta-da!
Weed, what a game.
What a game. You know, like, it's just like this relaxed state of cha1n that's just so intriguing in the grand scheme of things. Definitely, though, heated up there at the end. I really liked that deep embrace matchup between Galena and Keel. Like it was, you guys handled that one well. Great job by both players. I mean,
True.
let me start by saying congratulations to cha1n to making it to that top 6 today. Still played kind of out of his mind. And I remember we talked in previous stages about how, hey, cha1n's a guy you need to keep your eye on, right? Like he's evolving as a player. And, it's proven here today. Like it probably didn't make it as far as it obviously would have wanted to, but I'll say the exact same thing I think we said 2 stages ago. I'm looking forward to seeing cha1n continue kind of his run here and what he might be able to do. Wenger, after that first game, thinking, all right, was the last matchup like versus Maxter? Was that the thing that threw him off, off of the wire? I don't know, but he brought it back, right? Really great play, especially that Ruins game that was, that went unanswered by cha1n. There was some, solid play. So
I think we talked about it a little bit. That Ruins game was a big turning point for Wenger.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a game where he could play it at a slower pace, really settle himself, get his mind in the zone. He wasn't forced into these fights, and he built his way into the set, and that was a really strong showing. Insomnia was a little bit chaotic at times, and once again, it was a decent outing. I thought cha1n actually could have put more pressure on Wenger during that game. He was kind of settled in his zone, and it eventually kind of just got away from him, where that deep embrace was a masterful display by Keel. I will say there was some overzealous plays from Wenger trying to force down his opponent. I think, the narrative of, these guys are too fat and easy to kill. Like, I'm just going to run at you. Yeah, well, cha1n knew he was fat and easy to kill and didn't expose himself. Right. And so that was the problem. And cha1n played that wonderfully. And it came down to the smallest of margins in a long overtime and deep embrace.
That one bounce grenade onto the heavy, too,
Dude,
was
Jordan.
Pretty nice. Like,
I saw it coming from a mile away. You just see it go pop, pop, and then it lands right on the heavy. Wenger's like, takes a little bit of damage, gets knocked back, and then cha1n is there. He's ready. Yeah. And I think that grenade did just enough to put him below the railable threshold, and that set up the kill shot.
Yeah, pretty nice. All right, we're going to bring on Wenger here for an interview. Let's bring him on. Here he comes.
What up, Marco?
Hello.
Hello.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How it was definitely I would say, is it fair to say, rough morning, a pretty intense game versus or series versus Maxter, but you're able to bring it back. It shows also the importance of not letting one series kind of dictate how the rest of the day is going to go, right? So were you comfortable going into this game versus cha1n, or were you still kind of feeling like I need to find my game for the day?
Well, for sure I felt bad after losing to Maxter, because I didn't really think I played my best. So I was trying to just forget about the game and keep moving on with my day, because it's a long tournament. So even if you lose one, it doesn't matter that you are out. So as we saw in the past, you can make some really good rounds from the lower bracket. So my focus is just to keep going match after match.
Yeah, and cha1n kind of. He was confident he was going to make it to the top 6. I think a lot of people are still like, he's got a big road ahead of him. But, how did you feel like cha1n did perform not only throughout this tournament, then in this matchup versus you?
I think cha1n is playing the best Quake he has ever played, actually. So compared to a few years ago, or also a few months ago in the Pro League, he's playing way better. And you can see he's really being smart around the map. He's using the champions in the right way. And it's also respecting the opponent and not really making stupid plays, not pushing too much, but playing the ABC really solid. So props to him.
Awesome.
Congrats, Marco.
Thank you.
I just want to ask about going up against Razy now. Obviously, unfortunately for Rafa, he's been taken out of the tournament, but you're going to go up against last year's finalist in Razy. How are you feeling about that? And are you going to be looking to change anything ahead of that series as well?
I hope I will hit some rails, maybe.
Yeah, that
would be really helpful. If I could hit more than 25%, that would be so good. But I mean, it's Razy, so I know him really well. I hope it's gonna be a good show for the people watching, and I'm sure we're gonna give our best.
All right, simple.
Okay, yeah, congratulations. I
Thank
just want
you.
to ask you about, well, that final minute on Deep Embrace, right? You're going up as Galena against the Keel. Items are pretty much split, right? Stacks are somewhat comparable. How do you approach this? How do you get the upper hand?
I was like, man, if I push him, he's gonna need four nades in a row. So I was like, man, what do I do? Do I push from that side or like I try to hit a rail first? At one point, I was like, okay, it's now or never. Like I got, I think, two good rails when he was at the bubbles down below, and then I just had to go for it because otherwise the game will just keep going right now as well. So just went for it.
Yeah.
It paid off.
Were you just trying to force your fights all game with the LG? Was that the game plan?
Yeah, because I was getting out-railed by Kill as a Galena, so I was like, yeah, well, let's just use LG, I guess.
Can you tell us what you were shouting up there? Is that not PG?
What did I shout?
I don't know. You were shouting a lot, man.
I was very quiet, I was actually.
She shouted, I love this game. That's what I heard.
Wenger, congratulations. Good luck in your upcoming match. I know that it's a rough one going up against a teammate, but sometimes that's just how the cards fall. Congratulations on your win, and
Thank you.
good luck in your next matchup.
Thank you,
We're
guys.
going to take a quick break. When we return, it's time for the upper finals. Kilson going up against Maxter. That's going to happen right after this break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.